If you ask any sentient being in the galaxy about humans, and trust me, everyone has an opinion, they'll tell you the same thing: those bipedal weirdos just won't stop smiling. It's unnerving, really. They have too many teeth, Ambassador KZT of the Phloxian Hive once remarked during an interplanetary conference. And they show them, constantly. Even when discussing trade sanctions, the poor insectoid nearly molted on the spot. Humans joined the Galactic Harmony Council a mere 30 standard cycles ago, and they've been grinning their way through diplomacy ever since. They smile when they succeed. They smile when they fail. They even smile, perhaps especially when faced with catastrophe. The Aldebaran delegates still tell the story of the human mining vessel that lost life support during negotiations. While everyone else panicked, the humans cracked jokes about finally getting that beach vacation as they jerry-rigged atmospheric scrubbers from spare parts in ration containers. 3 of them nearly died. All of them laughed about it afterward. It's a defense mechanism, theorized Grand Scholar Vex Moria of the Centauri Scholarium. Their homeworld is so absurdly dangerous that they evolved psychological adaptations to maintain sanity. The smiling, the laughing, it's how they process trauma. Most species found it charming, if baffling. Some found it suspicious. They're hiding something, High Commander Drac Thor of the Vrex Imperium once growled during a closed council session. No species evolves to be pleasant. His suspicions were dismissed as paranoia, typical of his warrior culture that valued stoicism and regarded emotional displays as weakness. What nobody understood, what nobody could understand, was that the human's reputation wasn't entirely accurate. Humans weren't incapable of anger. They weren't eternally optimistic by nature. The smiles, the jokes, the laughter in the face of danger, these weren't ingrained evolutionary traits. They were choices. Choices made by a species that had nearly destroyed itself a dozen times over. A species that had looked into the abyss of its own nature and decided, collectively, to step back from the edge. The galaxy would soon learn that humans didn't smile because they lacked darkness. They smiled to keep the darkness at bay. And when that smile finally disappeared, well, that's when the galaxy learned what humans had been trying to tell them all along: you really don't want to see what's behind it. The Galactic Harmony Council station, affectionately nicknamed the Chandelier, due to its absurdly ornate design, hung in orbit around the neutral star Epsilon Indi, spinning gently like an overpriced Christmas ornament. Whoever designed the massive structure clearly had a thing for dramatic spires and unnecessarily elaborate architecture. Perhaps they were compensating for something. Diplomat Zex Trawl of the Jaxari Conclave adjusted her ceremonial robes as she made her way through the central promenade. Her species' 4 eyes blinked in sequence, an involuntary response to her mounting anxiety. The council session was due to begin in 30 standard minutes, and she had yet to complete her preliminary observations. "Excuse me. Coming through. Sorry about that tentacle, sir." A human female, easily identified by her bouncing gait and unnecessary volume, weaved through the crowd, clutching what appeared to be data tablets and a steaming cup of that bitter stimulant they were all addicted to. Zex Trawl's upper eyes narrowed in concentration. Perfect timing. Ambassador Sharma, Zex Trawl called, extending a formal greeting tendril. "Might I have a moment of your time?" The human female stopped, her face immediately arranging itself into that characteristic expression, lips pulled back, teeth exposed. A smile. Even after 3 standard years studying human behavior, Zex Trawl still found it mildly disconcerting. Zex Trawl. "Of course, though I'm afraid I'm a bit pressed for time." "Council drama. You know how it is." Ambassador Sharma gestured vaguely with her beverage, nearly sloshing it onto a passing Zarelian dignitary. "I understand. It's regarding my ongoing research into human diplomatic strategies. Your species' approach to today's resource allocation dispute would be most illuminating." The human's expression flickered so briefly that Zex Trawl almost missed it. Something darker passed behind those eyes before the smile reasserted itself. Same approach as always. Kill him with kindness, offer compromise, crack a joke when things get too heated. Sharma took a sip from her cup. "The Vrex delegation is being particularly stubborn about the Proxima Sector mining rights, but we'll work it out. We always do." Zex Trawl's secondary brain processed this response against historical data. There was something different. The words were correct, but the delivery lacked the usual human enthusiasm. "I see. And the recent incidents? Have they affected your negotiation parameters? The human smile tightened. What incidents would those be, diplomat? Before Zextral could respond, the council chamber doors parted with a ceremonial chime. Representatives from 27 species filed in a magnificent display of galactic diversity. Floating gas bags of the Helium Collective drifted alongside the crystalline quartz mines. Reptilian saurians hissed quietly at insectoid hive representatives. And of course the humans, 5 of them, all wearing identical diplomatic smiles. The session began with the traditional invocation of harmony. Grand Speaker Telox of the Ancient Ones tapped his ceremonial staff 3 times upon the chamber floor. Let discourse flow like water, nourishing understanding across the stars. The delegates responded in unison, except for the Aquarian representative, who gurgled something presumably similar through her water-breathing apparatus. The first agenda item: resource disputes in 3 border sectors. The Vrex Imperium immediately launched into accusations against human mining operations. They extract beyond their quotas, High Commander Drac Thor growled, pounding a scaled fist against the speaking podium. They smile and placate while stealing resources rightfully claimed by the Imperium. The human delegation exchanged glances. Lead diplomat Jackson rose, his face arranged in that infuriating pleasant expression. High Commander, I'm sure we can work this out without getting our tentacles in a twist. Or, in your case, scales. A ripple of nervous laughter circulated the chamber. Our records show full compliance with established quotas, but we're happy to form a joint oversight committee. From her observation alcove, Zextral noticed something troubling. The humans were smiling, yes. They were making jokes, yes. But their body language, micro-expressions, pupil dilation, subtle shifts in posture told a different story. For the first time since joining the council, the humans were faking it. 3 months earlier. Proxima Colony didn't look like much. A collection of prefab structures huddled on the rocky surface of Proxima Centauri b, surrounded by excavation pits and processing facilities. Not exactly a vacation destination, unless your idea of fun involves silicate dust and radiation shielding. Still, the 5,000 humans who called it home seemed to like it well enough. They'd even built a park in the central dome, if you could call 3 stunted trees and a patch of artificial grass a park. Another thrilling day in paradise, mining supervisor Eleni Papadopoulos quipped as she checked atmospheric readings. She'd been making the same joke every morning for 3 years. Her staff groaned on cue. You said that yesterday, her assistant pointed out. And I'll say it tomorrow, she replied with a wink. Consistency is key to good leadership. The proximity alarms went off at 0347 local time. At first, they assumed it was a system glitch happened every few months when cosmic radiation interfered with the sensors. By the time they realized it wasn't a false alarm, the first wave of attack ships had already breached the colony's minimal defenses. They came without warning or declaration. Black ships, unmarked, moving with military precision. They breached the habitat domes first, then systematically targeted power facilities and communication arrays. Get everyone to the emergency shelters, Papadopoulos shouted as the lights flickered and died. And keep trying the distress beacon. The attack lasted 18 minutes. When it was over, 437 colonists were dead, hundreds more injured, and critical infrastructure reduced to smoking ruins. The attackers took nothing, not equipment, not resources, not prisoners. They simply destroyed and left. Play it again. Admiral Samira Kazemi stood in the darkened command center of the UN's Indomitable, her face illuminated by the holographic display. The footage cobbled together from surviving security feeds showed the attack from multiple angles. Focus on the lead vessel, she instructed. Enhance section C7. The AI complied, zooming in on a blurry section of hull. There, Kazemi pointed. That configuration. It's Vrex military design. Her second-in-command, Commander Riley, squinted. Can't be. The Vrex would never risk open aggression. It violates the Council Accords. Unless they thought they could make it look like someone else. Kazemi's face remained impassive, had been impassive since receiving news of the attack. No smile, no frown, nothing but cold calculation in her dark eyes. We've detected similar hull configurations near 3 other outlying colonies in the past month. Jesus. You think they're testing our defenses? Probing for weaknesses. That's precisely what I think. And I think they're not acting alone, she gestured, and the display shifted to show diplomatic communication logs. These encrypted transmissions between Vrex, Hashtar, and Mundari diplomatic vessels. More than usual. Something's happening. Riley blew out a breath. What does Central Command want us to do? Officially? Nothing. Kazemi's mouth tightened into a thin line. We maintain diplomatic channels, express our deep concern to the Council, request an investigation. And unofficially. Kazemi tapped her console, bringing up a new display. Ship deployments, dozens of them, repositioning throughout human space. Unofficially, we prepare. 11th and 4th Fleets are being reassigned for training exercises near Proxima. Rapid response teams on heightened alert. Full sensor sweeps of all border regions. The Council won't like that. They'll say we're escalating. For the first time in the conversation, Kazemi's expression changed not to a smile, but to something harder, colder. Let them. We'll smile and play nice in public. We'll follow proper channels. We'll be the reasonable, diplomatic humans everyone expects. She turned away from the display, her silhouette rigid against the starfield. But make no mistake, Commander. This was an act of war, and if the Council won't deliver justice, we'll find another way. Commander Riley had served with Kazemi for 7 years. He'd seen her laugh off enemy fire, joke during evacuation orders, smile through the most tense negotiations. The absence of that smile now sent a chill down his spine that tactical alerts never could. Understood, Admiral. When do we begin? We already have. Kazemi gestured to a separate display showing intelligence operatives being deployed to Council worlds. The galaxy thinks they know humans. They're about to learn how wrong they are. I spy with my little eyes something beginning with evidence of interspecies conspiracy to commit genocide. Agent Leila Rodriguez tossed the data crystal onto the conference table, where it landed with an underwhelming plink. Once upon a time, her team would have chuckled at her gallows humor. Today, they just stared back with expressions that mirrored her own flat, cold, professional. That's not how the game works, Rodriguez, her colleague, muttered, picking up the crystal and inserting it into the briefing terminal. Sue me. I'm making up new rules. Rodriguez slumped into her chair as holographic data materialized above the table. Attack patterns, ship movements, communications logs, just like our friends on the Council. The investigation team had been working around the clock for weeks, operating from a nondescript office on Luna that officially didn't exist. 5 of Earth's best intelligence analysts, tasked with finding who had attacked Proxima Colony, and more importantly, why. We've confirmed similar attack signatures at 3 other outposts, said Analyst Chen, highlighting blinking red dots on the galactic map. Small facilities, minimal security, all hit within 6 standard weeks. Precision strikes in and out. And the connection to the Vrex, asked Rodriguez. Engine signatures are a 97% match to their Nightshade-class destroyers. But here's where it gets interesting. Chen zoomed in on a communication intercept. We've detected encrypted transmissions between Vrex Military Command and representatives from both the Hashtar Collective and Mundari Dominion. The door hissed open, interrupting the briefing. Rodriguez glanced up, suppressing a groan when she saw who entered. Ah, our esteemed babysitter has arrived. Diplomat Zex Trall's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of discomfort, Rodriguez had learned. The Jaxari stepped delicately into the room, ceremonial robes swishing against the sterile floor. I prefer neutral observer, Agent Rodriguez. The Council merely wishes to ensure proper investigative protocols are. Spare me the diplomatic speech, Rodriguez cut in. We both know you're here to see what we know and report back to your buddies. To her credit, Zex Trall didn't take the bait. I report to the Council as a whole, not individual members, and I would remind you that it was your government that agreed to my presence. Yeah, well, some of us disagreed with that decision. Before the exchange could escalate, the door opened again. Division Director Hammond entered, followed by a stern-faced Admiral Kazemi. Everyone stood, everyone except Rodriguez, who merely straightened in her chair. Bring them up to speed, Kazemi ordered, not bothering with pleasantries. Rodriguez nodded. We've tracked the attackers to a staging area in the Tau Ceti system, supposedly neutral territory, but we've confirmed Vrex military presence there for the past 6 months. And the Council connection, Hammond asked. Rodriguez's eyes flicked briefly to Zex Trall before continuing. Communications intercepts suggest coordination at the highest levels. Someone on the council authorized these attacks, possibly multiple someones. Zextral's skin paled to a lighter shade of blue. That's a serious accusation. Do you have conclusive evidence? Not yet, Rodriguez admitted. But we will. The council would never, Zextral began. Wouldn't they? Rodriguez stood now, her formerly jovial face hardened into something unrecognizable. 3,000 years ago, on Earth, a human named Machiavelli wrote that it's safer to be feared than loved. Some species never needed that lesson. Some species have always known that fear is the ultimate currency. The tension in the room was palpable. Hammond cleared his throat. How do we proceed, Admiral? Kazemi looked at each person in turn, her gaze lingering on Zextral. Outwardly, nothing changes. We continue diplomatic engagement. We smile. We cooperate. Her voice took on a steely edge. Meanwhile, Operation Long Night continues. Full surveillance on council species, particularly our 3 prime suspects. We build our case piece by piece. And if we find proof, asked Chen. For a moment, no one answered. Then Rodriguez spoke, her once famous humor nowhere to be found. Then we stopped smiling. The Oval Office hadn't changed much in the past few centuries. Same ridiculous carpet, same uncomfortable couches, same overwhelming sense that history with a capital H was watching. What had changed was the collection of people inside it. Today, that included the UN Secretary General, the Director of Galactic Intelligence, Admiral Kazemi, and a holographic projection of Agent Rodriguez from her classified location near the Horsehead Nebula. Madam President, we have confirmation. Rodriguez's hologram flickered slightly as she transmitted from 10,000 light-years away. The Vrex, Hashtar, and Mundari are working together. Operation Stardust isn't just about resource acquisition, it's about removing humanity from the equation entirely. President Elena Vasquez studied the evidence displayed on the floating screens. Communication logs, financial transfers, military deployments, all carefully hidden beneath layers of diplomatic cover, but unmistakable when pieced together. How long has this been planned, she asked. At least 2 standard years, replied the intelligence director, his usual wry smile conspicuously absent. They've been systematically testing our defenses, cataloging our responses, identifying weaknesses. And the rest of the council? Are they involved? Not actively, but Rodriguez paused, choosing her words carefully. Several species know enough that they should have reported something. They're looking the other way. Admiral Kazemi stepped forward. Madam President, we have a limited window. The Vrex fleet is mobilizing near Tau Ceti. Intelligence suggests they're planning something larger than the previous attacks. Recommendations. A heavy silence fell over the room. Finally, Secretary General Okafor spoke. If we go public with this evidence now, we risk tipping our hand. Some of it was obtained through methods the Council wouldn't approve of. You mean espionage, the President said bluntly. I mean protecting our people by any means necessary, Okafor replied, unrepentant. But yes, we need more, something irrefutable that even the Council can't ignore. And in the meantime, President Vasquez leaned forward. We just keep smiling and pretending all is well while they plan our extermination. Admiral Kazemi's expression remained impassive. That's exactly what we do, Madam President. We maintain the facade. We continue diplomatic engagement. Meanwhile, we position our assets, strengthen our defenses, and gather the final pieces of evidence we need. The President nodded slowly. How much time do we need? 3 weeks, Rodriguez's hologram answered. Maybe 4. My team is close to accessing the Vrex military command network. You'll have it, President Vasquez stood, signaling the end of the meeting. But understand this, when we move decisively. No half measures. If the Council has betrayed us, they will learn exactly why Earth's history books are filled with cautionary tales about human retribution. Zextral found the human cafeteria aboard the Council station fascinating under normal circumstances. Today, it was downright unsettling. The place should have been loud. Humans loved to talk over their meals, to laugh, to engage in that bewildering social ritual they called small talk instead. An eerie quiet hung over the room. The humans sat in small groups, speaking in hushed tones, their faces arranged in expressions that approximated their usual demeanor, but lacked the genuine warmth Zextral had come to expect. May I join you, Ambassador Sharma, she asked, approaching a table where the human diplomat sat alone. Of course, Sharma gestured to the empty chair, her smile appearing and disappearing so quickly it was almost subliminal. Zextral settled herself, adjusting her robes. I've been meaning to discuss the upcoming vote on the Orion trade routes. Your delegation has been unusually quiet on the matter. We're still formulating our position, Sharma replied, pushing food around her plate without eating. I see Zextral's secondary brain processed the response against known human behavioral patterns. Ambassador, if I may speak candidly, I've noticed a change in human demeanor lately. Not just yours, but across all human representatives. Sharma looked up, something flashing behind her eyes. Have you? Yes, you smile less. You engage less. Even your customary jokes during proceedings have decreased by 73%. For a moment, Sharma said nothing. Then she leaned forward slightly. Have you ever kept a secret so heavy it physically hurts? Diplomat Zextral. The question startled her. I don't understand. No, I suppose you wouldn't. Sharma's expression softened momentarily into something almost sad. Humans have a saying, the truth will out. Do you have something similar in your culture? We believe knowledge flows like water. It will find its path eventually. That's nice. Sharma stood, gathering her barely touched meal. When the water breaks through, diplomat, remember this conversation. Across the station, other species were noticing the change as well. The Aldebaran delegates whispered about the lack of human participation in social gatherings. The Quartz minds noted the increased efficiency and decreased pleasantries in diplomatic exchanges. Even the Vrex, normally dismissive of human behavior, had taken notice. High Commander Drak Thor cornered his Hashtar counterpart after a committee meeting. The humans know something, he growled. They're not acting right. The Hashtar representative's sensory tendrils quivered anxiously. Impossible. Our operation is secure. Then explain why they've stopped smiling. The emergency council session was called with such abrupt urgency that several delegates hadn't even had time to don their formal attire. The gelatinous representative of Proxima VI, I was still shifting between anxiety-induced color patterns when the human delegation entered. They didn't smile. Not one of them. The chamber fell silent as Commander Morgan Yu strode to the central podium. She was not a diplomat. That fact alone sent murmurs rippling through the assembled representatives. Military personnel rarely addressed the full council. Esteemed members of the Galactic Harmony Council, Yu began, her voice carrying easily through the cavernous space. For 30 cycles, humanity has participated in this grand experiment of interspecies cooperation. For 30 cycles, we have followed your rules, respected your customs, and trusted in the sanctity of our mutual accords. She paused, dark eyes scanning the chamber. That trust was misplaced. With a gesture, she activated the central display. Evidence materialized in the airship movements, communication logs, weapons signatures, financial transfers. 3 months ago, Proxima Colony was attacked by forces using Vrex military technology. 437 humans died. Her voice remained steady, clinical. Similar attacks have occurred at 3 other outposts. Our investigation has confirmed that these were not isolated incidents, but coordinated assaults planned and executed by the Vrex Imperium, the Hashtar Collective, and the Mundari Dominion. Chaos erupted. The Vrex delegation rose to their impressive height, scales bristling. This is outrageous, High Commander Drak Thor bellowed. The Imperium denies all involvement. These accusations are fabrications designed to. Are they? You cut him off, advancing the display. These are encrypted communications between your military command and Hashtar operatives discussing attack vectors and human defense capabilities. And this another slide appeared as the financial transfer from Mundari accounts to fund the operation. The Hashtar representative's tentacles twisted in agitation. These could be falsified. Humans are known for their creative deceptions. Oh, that's rich coming from you, muttered a human aide just loudly enough to be heard. You continued relentlessly. We have traced the authorization codes, we have tracked the ships, we have followed every thread of this conspiracy, and they all lead back to you 3 species. The Mundari ambassador's crystalline form shimmered with indignation. Where did you obtain this information? Your methods violate council privacy protocols. Our methods use eyebrow arched. You conspired to massacre our people, and you're concerned about our investigative techniques. The Grand Speaker tapped his staff, calling for order. These are serious accusations, Commander Yu. What does Earth demand in response? Yu straightened. Humanity requests formal sanctions against the implicated parties. Full reparations for lives lost and damage sustained, and the immediate removal of all Vrex, Hashtar, and Mundari representatives from council leadership positions pending a complete investigation. The chamber erupted again, but this time it was the Ancient One representative who spoke, his wizened voice carrying surprising authority. This evidence, while compelling, is not conclusive by council standards. We must deliberate and. No use single word silenced the chamber. There will be no deliberation, no committees, no delays. You will act now or humanity will consider the council complicit in these attacks. The threat hung in the air, heavy and unprecedented. Zextral stepped forward, her ceremonial position as neutral observer suddenly crucial. Commander Yu, such ultimatums violate the spirit of. Spare me. You turned to face her directly. You knew, didn't you? Not the details, perhaps, but enough. All of you knew something was happening, and you chose to look away. Before Zextral could respond, a new communication appeared on the central display incoming, marked with council leadership encryption. Allow it, Grand Speaker T-Lox said. The face that materialized belonged to your Vex, Senior Council Administrator, one of the most respected officials in galactic governance. His expression was composed, dignified. These proceedings have gone far enough, he stated calmly. Commander Yu, your evidence is impressive but ultimately irrelevant. A stunned silence fell over the chamber. Would you care to elaborate? Administrator Yu asked, her voice dangerously quiet. The operations against human outposts were sanctioned by council leadership after extensive deliberation. Your Vex's tone was matter-of-fact, as though discussing routine administrative matters. Humanity's rapid expansion and technological development represent a destabilizing force in galactic politics. The decision was made to curtail your species' growth before you became a greater threat. No one moved. No one spoke. The implications were too enormous to process immediately. Let me be sure I understand, you said finally. The governing body we trusted to maintain peace and justice secretly authorized attacks against our civilians as a preemptive measure. It was necessary, your Vex replied. Your kind has always been dangerous. The constant smiling, the jokes, the apparent friendliness, we recognized it for what it was: camouflage. Humanity's history is written in blood. We simply acted before you could revert to your true nature. Something changed in Commander Yu's face, then the last vestige of diplomatic restraint vanishing like morning dew under a brutal sun. The transformation rippled through every human in the chamber, a collective shedding of a mask they'd worn for 30 years. The last human smile disappeared from the council chamber. You were right to fear us, you said softly. But not for the reasons you thought. The council chamber remained frozen in stunned silence as Commander Yu stepped aside. Ambassador Amara Osei took her place at the podium, her normally warm features now a mask of cold composure. The contrast was jarring to those who had worked with her for years. Before I joined the diplomatic corps, Osei began, her rich voice echoing through the chamber, I was a professor of human history. I specialized in warfare, specifically the evolution of conflict from our earliest tribal skirmishes to the global wars that nearly exterminated our species. She tapped the podium controls, and images appeared in the air around her: ancient paintings of battles, photographs of world wars, footage of nuclear devastation. Humanity spent approximately 95% of its recorded history trying to annihilate itself. We became exceptionally good at it. The images shifted, showing increasingly sophisticated weapons, tactics, destruction. By the time we developed nuclear capabilities, we had perfected the art of mass death. And then we went further: biological weapons, autonomous killing machines, atmospheric destabilizers. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. The Aquarian representative's breathing tank bubbled more rapidly. We stood at the precipice of our own extinction 18 times before we finally learned better. 18 times. Osei's eyes swept the chamber. Do you understand what that means? It means humanity knows exactly how close intelligent life can come to self-destruction and still survive. We've looked into that abyss more deeply than any species here. The images changed again, showing the rebuilt cities, the healing planet, the first united human government. When we finally achieved peace among ourselves, it wasn't because we evolved beyond violence. It wasn't because we discovered some spiritual enlightenment. Her voice hardened. It was because we made a choice. Every day, every human makes the conscious decision to reject our darkest impulses, to smile instead of snarl, to joke instead of threaten, to cooperate instead of dominate. The Vrek's High Commander snorted derisively. Are we supposed to applaud your species' basic self-control? Osei turned her gaze directly to him. No, Commander. You're supposed to understand what happens when we stop exercising it. New images appeared, historical footage of human atrocities, war crimes, genocides. Many delegates looked away. You believed our smiles were naive, our optimism a weakness, our humor frivolous. Osei shook her head slowly. They were restraints, chains we willingly wore to contain something you cannot comprehend. You mistook our discipline for harmlessness. She straightened, somehow seeming taller than her physical form. As of this moment, humanity formally withdraws from the Galactic Harmony Council. We revoke all treaties, trade agreements, and defense pacts. Our borders are closed. Our diplomatic missions ended. Pandemonium erupted. The Grand Speaker pounded his staff repeatedly, struggling to restore order. Ambassador, this is unprecedented, he shouted over the chaos. The procedures for withdrawal require. We're well past procedures, Osei cut in, her voice slicing through the noise. The chamber quieted. To the species who planned and executed attacks against our people, you have 14 standard days to deliver the following. She displayed a list of demands: reparations, formal apologies, the surrender of all military officials involved in the attacks, and complete demilitarization of border regions. This is extortion, the Mundari representative cried. We will not be dictated to by. This is mercy, Osei corrected, her voice devoid of emotion. Because we still remember what it means to be civilized. You have 14 days. After that, humanity will pursue justice by other means. The Hashtar delegate's voice trembled. Are you threatening war? For the first time, something like a smile flickered across Osei's face, but it bore no resemblance to the warm expressions the Council had grown accustomed to from humans. This was something ancient and predatory. War is such an inadequate word for what will happen. She gathered her materials with deliberate calm. In our history, we had another term: reckoning. Osei stepped away from the podium, joining the rest of the human delegation. As one, they turned and walked toward the exit. At the threshold, she paused and looked back at the assembled representatives. For 30 years, you've known humans who chose to smile. Now you'll meet the ones who stopped. I suggest you prepare accordingly. The doors sealed behind them with a sound that seemed, to many delegates, unnervingly final.